Okay, thank you. And I now recognize the gentleman from Oklahoma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Woloschak, one of the tendencies, whether it's in Congress or in the executive branch or for that matter anywhere out in the real world, is sometimes if we don't want the answer, we don't ask the question. So from that, guys, let me quiz you, ask you for your opinion. The way that this research was determined to no longer be conducted, is that an example perhaps of someone not wanting the answers that would come from it? And if I look at this in the overall context, I mean, we've discussed health issues, we've discussed terrorism issues, we've discussed the space program. From the perspective of my constituents back in Oklahoma, it seems that not knowing this information or taking the research to its ultimate conclusion puts us in a position to make perhaps decisions based on inaccurate facts. Could you expand on that a moment? I mean, from the perspective, say, of NASA, if we're going to the moon, if we're going to Mars, we need to know these things, correct?
Yes. In fact, when I ask astronauts, they say exactly that they care about the risk for cancer. They don't care as much about the risk of blowing up on the launch pad, which puzzles me. But
launch pad is instantaneous. Cancer can take a long time.
That's what they say. That's what they say.
I appreciate their point.
But I think you're exactly right. The thing is, I can't actually speculate for why people don't want to know the answers to these questions or why it's been sort of stopped. But I will say it's been a pattern, at least from my experience within DOE, because we had a very large-scale program. I believe it was one of the best in the world for with these animals. They just terminated it, spontaneously. Then they started up the low-dose program, and then again, they terminated it very, very rapidly. I don't know what the reason for that. It could just be something sporadic. Again, probably somebody from DOE could answer that better than I could.
One of our responsibilities in Congress, and most assuredly in our oversight capacities, is to assess these situations and compel the right actions to take place to help provide guidance to the executive branch. I always remind my constituents in town meetings, no matter what anyone says at the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue, we write the laws. No matter what anyone says, the responsibility is for those laws to be implemented accurately and efficiently. So I find this a very concerning issue to me in a variety of ways. We have debated on this committee, as the chairman knows, and in Congress for years about how to store waste, whether a facility underneath a giant mountain in the west should be used, or it's better to store things down the street from me that I may not know about because that's where it was created, or where we go ultimately with NASA. Well, I appreciate your observations and the willingness to try and preserve as much of this research as could be done. Do any of your colleagues on the panel wish to address that question about what the background might or might not be that led to the decisions that have brought us to this point?
Well, let me add that the best answer we could get from DOE was that they had other research priorities in bioenergy and environmental research that they wanted to fund. What was curious to us is that in 2016, the advisory committee report identified a number of areas that DOE thought would be useful to reduce the risk of cancer, to understand better the low-dose risk. And it also supported convening workshops between agencies to collaborate on a research agenda. But then the report ultimately concluded not to continue the research. So we couldn't get a better answer than that, that it's just there were other research priorities.
I have nothing to add to this one.
I think perhaps I've made my point, and I appreciate that, and I'll yield back the remainder of my time, Mr. Chairman.
Which is, by the way,